In this video we're going to look at some basic numeric functions within Google Sheets. In this sheet I have set up a series of numbers, basic range just taken in ordinary numbers, and we'll look at a few functions, arithmetic functions that we can use on these. The most basic is probably the one that you're used to the most is the sum function. And this can be used directly from the toolbar. Click on a cell and then click on the sigma little drop down arrow against it and select sum. And now the sum function is waiting to be prompted for a series of values. And I can just highlight the values I want to include by just holding down the left clicker and dragging down. When I'm happy, press enter, and there we go. 232 is the sum of these numbers here. You can do other arithmetic calculations directly in a cell. I can look to raise a number to the power of another number. So I type in equals power, open bracket, and that should give me 8. The caret symbol on the keyboard will also do the same thing. So if I type in equals 2, shift and 6 and 3, that will also give me 8. I can get the square root of a number, so equals SQRT, open bracket, 64, close bracket, 8. Or if I want to, I can do 64 caret, open bracket, 1 divided by 2, that does the same thing, 8 square root. So this function here, 64 to the power of 1 over 2, is the same as the square root of 2, square root of 64. Sorry. Moving on, I just really want to point out some arithmetic or mathematical principles. Excel is very good at pointing out syntax errors, when you get the function name wrong or do something illegal mathematically, Excel will highlight the error. But where your syntax is correct but your logic is wrong, Excel won't point that out to you. So I've highlighted two scenarios where the sum is equals 5 plus 1 multiplied by 2 in two separate cells. If Excel evaluates the first formula, it returns a value of 7. If Excel evaluates the second formula, it gets a result of 12. The reason for the difference is that in mathematical terms, whatever is contained in brackets must be executed first. Otherwise, execute the multiplication or the division ahead of any addition or subtraction. So in the first instance, the 1 multiplied by 2, which is 2, is executed first, plus 5 is 7. In the second formula, 5 plus 1 is executed first because it's within brackets, so it's 6 multiplied by 2 is 12. So when you're doing calculations in Excel, just be very wary of these principles because Excel will not highlight a flaw in your logic. The next formula I want to look at is the subtotal. As I move along these cells, the function name used is the same in all instances. That function is subtotal. Not only that, but the range of numbers that the subtotal is working on is the same in all instances. It's the range A2 to A6. It's these numbers here. Yet in each instance, the result differs. The reason for that is that the first parameter is different. So in column B, subtotal is using the parameter 1. In column C, it's using the parameter 2. In column 3, it's using the parameter 3, and so on. The reason for this is the parameter determines what kind of action the subtotal will carry out. So in the first scenario in column B, the value of the first parameter is 1, which means that the subtotal will carry out an averaging action on these numbers. In the second, in column C and column D, the action will be a count and a count A, and in the column E, it's taking the max from these numbers here, and in column F it's taking the minimum in these columns here, and so on. The difference between count and count A is straightforward. Function count will only count up numbers. Count A will count up numbers and text. So for example, if I type in Joe here and change the parameters from the range from A6 to A7, the result of count stays the same. If I change the range from A6 to A7, count A, the result returns to 6 because it's including the text Joe in the elements to be counted. That's the only difference between count and count A. The other thing to point out as well, if you use subtotal 9, this is exactly the same result as just using the sum function. Now we'll look at several functions to manipulate numbers. Trunc is short for truncate. So if I take this value here, 2.123 in cell A2, I can manipulated by going equals trunc, the value from cell A2, comma 1. That's in places, decimal places. Close bracket, press return, and it gives me 2.1. So trunc A2, comma 1 truncates the value in cell A2 to one decimal place. So that's why you have 2.1. Round will do much the same. Equals round value 1.24 and comma 0. So to round to 0 decimal places, and that just gives me to 1. Equals round up, comma 0 decimal places, and that will give me 2. So 1.24 rounded to no decimal places will change this number to 2. Round will round down where the decimal to be rounded on is 4 or less. It will round up if it's 5 or more. Equals round down to, will always round down. Change that to 1 decimal place to 1.2. Int is just short for integer, and it will return the number to the round down to the nearest integer. So 1.23 rounds down to 1, because 1 is the nearest integer to 1.23. And finally, we'll look at a couple of these statistical functions. So we have a range of numbers here again, and the average, which is the mean average, is just average, open bracket, close bracket, A2 to A7. Minimum is equals min, range of values, returns 1, because 1 is the minimum value there. You can also hard code a minimum value in, so I can actually add another value in. So if I put in 0 there, so the minimum value from A2 to A6 subject to an overall minimum of 0 will return a value of 0. Equals max A2 to A6, comma 100 will return the maximum value contained A2 to A6 subject to a maximum of 100, and will return 100 because 100 is greater than any value contained in this range here. Count and count A is exactly the same as we've encountered before, so if I add on a bit of text here, equals count, select all these, A2 to A8, still only returns 5, it will only return the count of 5 numbers. If I use count A, A2 to A8, it will return 7. Thank you for watching.